Hello and welcome to Breaking Bread. My name is Toyin Taiwo. Today I'm going to continue with our studies in the book of 1 Timothy, and I'll be looking at chapter 4. Chapter 4 can be divided into 3 parts, roughly equal parts of 5 verses each. And in the first part, Paul is warning Timothy about things that are going to happen in the latter days. People are going to depart from the faith, start following the doctrine of demons, which will be taught by hypocritical liars. They will teach that people should not get married, they should abstain from certain foods, while Paul asserts that God has created all foods to be received and be consecrated with thanksgiving and prayer. And so Paul says that Timothy will be a faithful minister if he warns the people about these false doctrines that will be coming, and instead direct their attention to training themselves in godliness. And this is very interesting. Paul says in verse 8 that godliness is, he says physical training is of some value, but godliness is of a greater value, having benefit for the present world and the world to come. But the key thing here is that we have to train ourselves to godliness. And so although we are all believers, we have the seed of Christ in us, there is a necessity for training in the art of godliness. We have to practice by praying, practice by reading the word of God, practice by fasting. That is how we build spiritual muscle, and we practice by doing. As we do those things, we take a stronger stand in our faith and become more firm and unshakable. And this was the focus of the second part of 1 Timothy chapter 4. In the third part, Paul goes on to encourage Timothy not to be discouraged when people look down on him. In fact, he says, do not let anyone look down on you. How should you counteract that? By being an example of the believers. In other words, set your life as an example in love, in purity, in your conversation, in your, in your character, in what you say. Set yourself as an example. And so even when people speak against you, your life actually vindicates you, because you are practicing godliness. You are practicing living as a believer, and you are not giving people room by just being careless with your living. Paul also says that Timothy needs to exercise his gift, and that as he does that, his benefit will become obvious to all. He says that Timothy should, do all of these things so that he will benefit not just himself, but all of those who listen to him. So we see Paul gradually progress from warning his son in the faith about avoiding errors to exercising himself in the faith, and then to being an example for all believers. This is the progression of our faith. We avoid errors, and then instead of just being there, we exercise ourselves in doing or practicing godliness, and then by doing that, we make ourselves an example for those who believe in God. And even if people want to look down on us because we are young, our example actually vindicates us, and God also sees and vindicates our life by the testimonies that spring forth from our hearts and from our works. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've been blessed. In the next video, I'm going to move on and talk about the 5th chapter of 1 Timothy. And until then, you stay blessed.